Have you ever been unhappy at work because of the actions of another person? If that's the case, it's possible that you're being bullied. Bullying can happen as an adult, just like it happens to kids. And so I want to talk to you today about 5 of the most common types of workplace bullying. Now, I got the information on which are the most common types of workplace bullying from a survey that was run by CareerBuilder. The most common type of workplace bullying that was cited was being falsely accused of mistakes. This makes sense to me for a few reasons. First one being that if somebody else makes a mistake at work and they don't want to get blamed for it, they are probably going to try to blame someone else ASAP. Yeah, it's unfair. However, it makes sense to me that it's so common because desperate people do stupid stuff. I have worked as a manager and I have seen people try to do this to their peers. Anytime someone is blaming someone else for their failures, huge red flag. Definitely don't take it at face value. The flip side of that is when you are getting blamed for other people's failures, that can be really frustrating. There are kind of 2 situations here that are a bit different. If one of your equals is trying to blame you for making mistakes that you didn't do, your best course of action is to try to talk to your boss or someone and request that your and their parts of the assignment get reported back differently. For example, I'm a programmer and I work with product people. One time I didn't receive the product requirements until 24 hours before the project was due, and I was up all night trying to get it done. This person may have tried to present it off like my own poor time management. And so what I had to do is I had to make it sort of more public, like, hey, this is when the requirements were passed off. I couldn't, I had to not have that be obscured. Now, the other time this happens, which is a lot more problematic, is if you're existing in a larger hierarchy and your boss is blaming you for their mistakes. I have seen this happen to friends of mine, and I actually don't think it's a situation you can fix. I'm trying to give some solutions to some of these workplace bullying things here. However, if your boss is scapegoating you for the mistakes they are making, I would say start trying to find a new job as soon as possible. This is a common issue, and I've read about it in leadership studies. And what happens is it's very frequent for the underlings to get blamed for the mistakes of the boss and for the boss to take credit for the accomplishments of the underlings. And so if you are getting scapegoated at work by your boss, this is very bad. This is unlikely to be fixable. You probably need to be trying to find a new situation, a new boss, something like that. It is something that is just documented. It's very hard to defend yourself from when you are lacking power in this situation. The second most common way of being bullied at work is being ignored by the people around you or kind of dismissed. It is extremely painful, and it is a type of behavior where you can easily feel very gaslit. You maybe feel like you're overreacting. This shouldn't bug you as much, but the way human psychology is, being ostracized is very, very painful. This can just be an oversight. This is one where, you can approach it in more gentle ways without calling people out right away. You can talk to your boss about how you're really wanting to bond with the team more and you're feeling a little bit excluded or a little bit left out, and you'd really like to change that, and will hopefully start calling your boss's attention if there is behavior that other people are doing. What sucks about people who are kind of ignoring you is it's a very deniable thing. But sometimes if you open up about these things and you enlist other people's help with the more general goal of feeling included, they may start helping you out there. With all of these things, sadly, most of the time people being bullied at work often don't have the problem solved until they leave their job, more than half the time. Main thing to remember if you're feeling ignored is don't underplay it. It is very painful and you're not insane. It's a common type of workplace bullying. Another common type of workplace bullying is excessive criticism, and I've been on the receiving end of this one before. It actually reminds me a lot of just a more standard abusive relationship. Unlike the 2 previous ones where, getting blamed for mistakes could just be someone desperate trying to save their own job, and being ignored might even be an oversight. This is a very common emotionally abusive tactic. It's a way that abusive spouses wear their spouse down is they're just criticizing all the time until this person loses faith in themselves. The exact same dynamics can happen at work. Excessive criticism beyond constructive criticism, which you can usually tell because even if it stings, it's more friendly and people try to blunt the emotional impact by saying something nice. But if someone is criticizing you in ways that just feel malicious, they are not trying to help you. They will pretend they're trying to help you. This is about them trying to get a higher up place in the social hierarchy at work than you. And if they're your boss, it is them trying to further and deepen their control over you and to stop you from flourishing. Ironically, actually, excessive criticism can often be an indicator that your work performance is really good. They're worried you're going to get promoted over them and they're trying to pull you down a peg, just trying to maintain their dominance over you. You know, this is one of those ones where I don't really think it's possible to reform that person unless you want to go in very aggressively, which I have done before. There was this male programmer once who was criticizing me about the most mundane things very publicly to a group of non-developers who didn't understand the significance of what he was saying, right? So he was calling me out for things that basically other people like himself were allowed to do. And I lost it at him over Slack one day and accused him of basically trying to make himself look better at my expense and relying on the fact that other people here want technical to bolster his own image. The two bosses apologized to me, acknowledged that this guy was being a dick. This was actually a client, not a full-time job. I just couldn't work for that client anymore. It was too toxic. And the simple fact of the matter is, like, they knew this guy was a jerk and they allowed him to continue there because he was supposedly a good programmer. If a place is allowing excessively critical people to work there because they think that what they're producing justifies it, that is a toxic work environment. And again, I couldn't tolerate it. I would not recommend other people tolerate it either. The only real way out is if someone like your boss acknowledges it and isolates you from the person. It could potentially work out. So now we move on to the fourth most common type of bullying, which is being held to a different standard than other people. I find this one in particular can go hand in hand with some variety of discrimination sometimes. Sexism or sort of sexist biases, racial biases, sometimes prejudiced against queer people and things like that. What can happen is, in the case of sexism, for example, people can play on the implicit assumptions about the competence of one individual and so require a different metric to be held, although it can happen to anyone. One example in my own life, I had a coworker who was my equal, and he was demanding that he get to do a code review or a review of everything I checked into the code base. But then he would not let me do a code review of his code. So there was an unequal standard there, and he wasn't my boss or anything. And, this one is really frustrating, but it's actually not that hard to solve. What I did is I was like, hey, can we have like a formalized standard here? You are wanting to code review all my stuff, let's just do code reviews. And then what happened is when I started wanting to code review his code as well, he started complaining that it was making it harder for him to iterate and get things out as fast. And I was like, yeah, why do you think I haven't been getting things out as fast? Like, I have to wait for you to approve something. But it was really, really hard for him to defend to our bosses why he should have the right to code review me when I didn't have the right to code review him. And so I think that what is the best way to handle unequal treatment is you ask for a formalized set of rules that apply to everyone. What you say is hey, I think it would just be clearer and it would help us all follow procedure or whatever if we just wrote this up. And then once you have the formalized set of rules that have to apply to everyone, it becomes a little bit harder for them to do this. This won't necessarily magically solve 100% of your problems. Something slightly subjective where it is hard to get a written up set of rules. That may be more difficult, but as much as possible, try to formalize things, try to standardize things, because it makes it really hard for someone to secretly slip in that double standard. The final one I'm going to cover today, although there are more, and if you're interested in seeing the survey, I did link to it in the description. The final one I'm going to cover today is if you are a victim of gossip. I've also kind of covered this in non-work situations in my video on passive aggression as well. The short story is I don't have good news about gossip. It is really hard to combat, and the reason it's hard to combat is you're not there. You can't really see what's going on, and it starts to get really political. Like, you have to start trying to have allies or friends who report back to you or who tell you when this is happening. And you may, if it gets really bad, you may want to be looking at new work. A little bit of gossip, or especially sort of slightly personal gossip, is probably not that damaging to your career, just annoying. So like if you got a divorce or something, people are gossiping about your divorce, like, yes, that's painful. That might not be terminal. That might just be something that you weather for a bit. But if this is unfair gossip about your work performance, and someone feels like they're maliciously trying to hurt your career behind your back, you might need to protect yourself, potentially by getting a new job. It is frustrating. It is frustrating when a bully bullies you out of a job that you like or a job that you want. I would say that you can try to consider other options. You can try to consider transferring within the company, transferring so you don't have to work with the bully, things like that. A lot of this is really case-by-case dependent. According to some studies, we are actually getting better at addressing workplace bullying. I think that addressing the problem of bullying, especially in US society, is having a little bit of a moment right now. But until we get better at it, the realistic situation is, in the case of extreme bullying, you do often need to find a new job, and you're better off accepting that reality as early as possible, so you can start looking, and so you can start taking the steps you need to protect yourself. And you can go research some of this stuff further. Really, what I was just trying to highlight today is if you're having trouble at work, and you're having a really problematic person, you might want to consider that you are being the victim of some sort of malicious intention. It sucks to realize that. It is better to realize that and be able to protect yourself than it is to not realize that, though. That's what I got. Wish you the best with any and all of your workplace problems. Bye.